Hello.
Hello, John.
Hey,
Hello,
Woohoo.
Syed.
what's going on, guys?
Hello, jet lag Damien.
Hello, everyone watching. Yes, I am horribly, horribly jet lagged. I want to sleep. I just want to sleep. It's so terrible. I think I collapsed last night in the hallway at like 9 o'clock while my daughter was having her bath. So I was talking to her from the hallway, trying not to fall asleep. Then I went to bed, and then I think I actually fell asleep about 11 because that's what the body, like the body's tired, but I just can't get. And then I'm pretty sure I woke up at about 4.
Nice.
And then it was just that whole lying in bed trying to get myself to sleep again thing. And I'm pretty sure there was a dream somewhere after that. So I think I must have lost about an hour, but that was it last night. That was a good night compared to the last 3 nights. So I'm a little blinky this morning, as we say in my house.
Excellent.
How are you?
I'm good. And we have Syed on. And
Yeah, right.
yeah, so Syed's going to be showing some cool stuff with doing
Excuse me.
ASP.NET Core Dev on a Mac, which is cool.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. You know, I'm remembering back to when like DNX was a thing, and I had to always tote around the MacBook with me and pop it open and be like, it actually works. But it was kind of like command line, you know, and I'm running homebrew all the time and stuff. So this is like the grown-up ASP.NET
Oh, and the birth
Core
of
on a Mac.
OmniSharp from those times as well, right?
There you go.
Syed was
Yeah,
instrumental in, if I recall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and yeah, good stuff. All right, well let me share. I have just a few links. Let me switch over.
Wait.
Oh,
Does John love community?
I still do.
Yes, even when I'm not here for weeks on
Hooray.
end. All right, hang on.
24/7.
I gotta remember how
right.
to use the Stream Deck. I hit that button, right?
All right.
Oh, that was like nearly perfectly timed. Lovely.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so we had, first of all, Andrew Locke. Last week he was showing off this thing. This was an experiment. I don't know if you saw his previous one. He's trying to, or he was looking at ways to insert middleware as a library author to make sure it gets inserted at the right place. So this was a post I featured last week.
Okay.
And what he was showing is there's cases where you need to insert middleware, say after routing, but before endpoints.
That's right. And because then, just so people know, the reason is because use routing is the bit that picks the endpoint, and then anything that runs after that, but before use endpoints, can ask, hey, what endpoint is going to be hit and what metadata is associated with it, like what clause policy or what authorization policy, and then it can do stuff with that. So.
Okay. So what he ended up doing in this case, this was inserting something before use endpoints was called. And he ended up what he ended up doing, I don't know if there's a better way. He looked at the way the analysis middleware works, which inserts itself between every middleware.
Okay.
And so then he basically created something similar that said, what is the name of the next middleware? Which
is usually derived from the type. That only works if there's a type associated with the middleware. Not all middleware has a type associated with it because ultimately they're just functions. But yes.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. That is super tricky.
This is super tricky. So this is what he did in this case. Then for this week's post, he's looking at how to create something that was to check if something had run to insert your middleware before another middleware. This one, he's looking at how to insert middleware after another middleware. So as I frequently do with Andrew Locke posts, I jump to the summary because this is where he like spells it out like I'm a 5th grader.
Okay.
And so here he's saying he's got 2 middleware instances and he's recording a wrapped middleware and putting it in a dictionary. And then he's using a conditional middleware to check if it was just executed.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And again, I don't know if there's, and he's got cool diagrams in here of how he's doing that. I don't know if there's a simpler pattern.
No, I mean, the official statement has always been we don't really have a story for this, as is automatically adding middleware in the pipeline in specific places. I'd be interested to like check with Fowler to see what his opinion on this is and whether it's part of me is wondering whether this is foolproof and whether there's ways that this might break, because middleware is not an ordered set of things that you can enumerate and then insert into easily. Like it's not guaranteed that way, and startup filters don't get given a thing that you can go in there and add. So like this is a really interesting way of doing it. But I'd have to dive deeper into it and speak to some folks to figure out whether this is something that we would want to widely recommend. But it's super cool.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right. Next post here. So Zoltan has a series of posts looking at AG Grid with ASP.NET Core. AG Grid is it's a JavaScript kind of front-end grid solution. Definitely works with Angular. I think they have support for some other libraries as well, or front-end frameworks. I've been following AG Grid for a while. I coordinated some labs years ago at Build, and after looking around, this was kind of the best kind of component style grid that I could find at the time. So this is an up-to-date tutorial going through using AG Grid. So using with models and ASP.NET Core API on the back end, and then hooking it up on the front end. So here he's integrating it in with Razor. And you have your kind of, as you'd expect, you define your columns and all that, and you map it to the AG Grid calls, and it handles the basic kind of updates. And it's a whole kind of grid solution with all the paging and all that kind of stuff. So this is his first in the series, and he's already written another one since then, going deeper into that.
Cool.
So neat stuff. Okay, here's Jeremy on the Pluralsight blog writing about containerizing Blazor applications. So here he goes through both cases. WebAssembly, super simple because it's just static hosting. So he goes through and shows how to output just your static files, and host those. So that's simpler. But then also, even with the Blazor server model, relatively simple. You do need to think about exposing your ports and the entry point and stuff like that, but pretty straightforward there. Cool. So, yeah. All right. So Rehan Sayed is writing about updates for .NET Boxed. So .NET Boxed does a few things. I thought this was neat. He's got his tweet templates in his repo as well. So some of the things that they've got support for, there is the API, so API templates, and this does some more advanced stuff with APIs. The GraphQL is one that I've been especially interested because this is a whole kind of prescriptive approach to GraphQL with ASP.NET Core.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So this kind of wires up a lot of stuff for you, including like the explorers and stuff. Then there's also the Orleans template, and then he's also got one for NuGet, and this includes things like actually, building and running a pipeline for NuGet as well. So good stuff.
Cool.
Nice to see that continue to be updated. All right, so here we go. So yet another wake up and code. Always happy to see these. And so here, this one is on EF Core relationships. So here's digging into the, this goes through all the, one-to-ones, one-to-manys, and many-to-manys, spelling out things with link tables, et cetera, and enforcing constraints. This is always something every single time. I do it just rarely enough that I always have to look up the docs. So I'm sure that I'm going to be coming back to this one. So awesome to see the series continue. Thank you, Shahed. All right, Claudia writing about creating a Blazor component. So this is a very simple, lightweight, just how to create a component. Starting off with a Razor component template, and then talking about the simple things, creating using variables, parameters, and then how to include that in a page. So just lightweight. More and more over time, I'm seeing that the component model of Blazor is kind of really one of the strongest points there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to see that. And then one pretty interesting one from Alistair. So he's looking at building a whole kind of editor using Monaco, Antler, and Blazor WebAssembly. So AutoStep is a Gherkin-style test framework. And here he's writing about hooking all this stuff together using JS interop where needed, and writing a front-end editor so you can, in the browser, do your it does all the tokenizing and parsing and all that kind of crazy stuff, and it shows your autocomplete and all that stuff for. Yeah. So this is neat. This is using this syntax for the Gherkin style tests. And then he's got, bigger plans going forward, including, building out like a user interface and more automatic suggestions and stuff. So neat to see that. And as always, I'll be sharing these out under the URL list. Somebody actually figured out the pattern that, I use the same pattern every week, and they squatted it. So I had to put in the word links so that I could make. So kudos to you, random squatter person. Yeah. And I'm done.
Excellent.
All right.
One of these buttons will get me back to where we should be. There it is.
So I don't know. Do you have anything new from your side you want to share, Damien, before we hop over?
Nothing majorly. I mean, there's a couple of things. I just got back from London, obviously, as I said, for NDC London. I was there with Fowler and Ryan. Steve was there as well. We were both all teaching workshops of various types and then speaking, giving sessions. So they're not available online yet. There will be. NDC publishes their talks usually within 2 to 3 weeks. And so I guess within a couple of weeks, John will share out the links of everyone or anything of interest on here, which would be good. We did share code and slides and stuff, but without the recorded talk, it's probably not as useful to share that now, but that was good. What else? We've got MVP Summit coming up, so that we'll be doing some preparation for that, which will be interesting. I think the build dates just got announced, or something this morning just got tweeted. So I think build dates were pre-announced a while ago, but something, I think you can register or something. I don't know. There's something happening. I saw something fly past my Twitter stream about build this morning. I'm sure we'll have to do some stuff for that as well. And then I think we've .NET 5. We're working towards the first preview. So we've just gone through this big GitHub repo consolidation effort and getting all the builds going since then. I believe we've had one successful build since all that happened, and so I think we're at least a month out from the first preview. So don't hold your breath just yet. But the teams are all working away at .NET 5 stuff, and I think there's going to be some more details regarding sort of the overall scope. And there were some big things announced last year about .NET 5, but some detail. The next level of detail hasn't really been shared yet. I mean, other than the folks trolling GitHub, because people are all working practically in the open there anyway, so you can figure it out. But I think we'll see more communication about the top level sort of themes and features and those sort of things for the various areas of the product coming out shortly. Someone's pointing out that yes, I hit my Microsoft anniversary this week. 10 years. Congrats. Milestone anniversary. Sayed, yours must be coming up soon because you joined not long after me, if I recall.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, June for me, and then if I'm not mistaken, October for Mads.
Yeah, it's all in the same year, I think.
Yeah, right.
I hit mine in November.
Oh, there you go. This is just this cluster of people that joined at that time. And if I was joking on Twitter, if you look at the stock price, since then,
right?
It's like it was all the 10 years prior was flat, and then 10 years since we all joined is just skyrocketed. So
that's it.
I'm not saying correlation is causation, but there's that. So that's all good fun. So thank you for all the congratulations.
Did you go with the magical crystal?
I did. I mean, when I joined, right, I'm still from the age where you just got given the crystal. And so I've been coveting all the crystals ever since I joined. I got my 5-year crystal when it was still, it just shows up and your manager gives it to you in a box. And then a few years ago, they introduced a new thing. Options, yeah. So where you can, they email you on your anniversary day, on a milestone anniversary, and they ask you, do you want the crystal? Do you want some dollar amount in your next paycheck, which I think is basically equates to how much the crystal costs Microsoft, or do you want to donate that? And I'm like, I want the crystal, because that's you walk around for the first few years at Microsoft 10 years ago, and you see all these crystals on people's desks back when we had desks. And you and you would, no one has anywhere to put their crystals anymore, so you don't see them at work anymore. People take them home. And so I still want the crystal, So I'll get my 10-year crystal. I think the 10-year one, my 5-year one is blue. The 10-year one I think is green. And I think 15 is orange. And then 20 is, I think, the first multicolored one, or is it red? I don't know, maybe 25. And 25 is the ridiculous one where it comes in like a pelican case on a dolly.
Yeah.
Because it's so big, and then your name gets engraved on the permanent crystals over in the conference center here. where they celebrate the 25-year people. And then, like, the thing is crazy. The 25-year one is, like, epically huge. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I just got the 10-year, and I'm going to enjoy
Mine is supposed to arrive tomorrow.
Oh, really?
FedEx, yeah.
Awesome.
What do you guys do with your crystals? I mean, I got mine in the storage unit.
Oh, I've got mine. So I have a small display. Oh, John's got his behind him. I've got a small sort of antique bookcase storage case thing, like outside, downstairs in my basement near my bar and stuff. And so that has my whatever rewards I've won over my adult life.
Sure.
For my Black Belt certificate, and it's got my Microsoft crystal. It's got my MVP award in it as well.
Yep.
There you go. There's the 5-year.
Right there you go.
Awesome. It looks very dirty, John. Powers. I think you need to polish it.
I do.
The light's not really refracting off it the way I'd expect. Something super.
But there are still healing powers.
Indeed, of course, healing powers of crystal. No, it's a nice little memento. So yeah. So what other work stuff? I've been diving into some stuff that isn't really ASP.NET and .NET related recently. So just it's to do with the product, but it's sort of more behind the scenes sort of data, trying to understand who our customers are and what features they use and all that type of thing, so we can better understand, better make decisions on what to work on and how successful things are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all. I'm enjoying that. It's pretty good too. So, but yeah, we're here to talk about other stuff, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you were telling me before I said you've been on the team for, is it 2 years? Year and a half?
Yeah, right. Yeah, about maybe just a little bit over 2 years. Yeah, that's right. So, and kind of what we mentioned before, I'm going on my 10 years in June, and before joining Visual Studio for Mac, I was with you guys doing ASP.NET tooling and Visual Studio itself, and I also was doing .NET New, which, man, I still really love .NET New. It pains me that I don't own that thing anymore, but I still try to be involved as much as I can. But yeah, and then what kind of spurred it was, I really had like a family situation where I needed to work from home, so that's why I kind of switched teams. But yeah, so now I work from home in Florida.
Very cool. And part of the timing on this, there are at least 3 reasons why I invited you. I mean, number one, because you've added in tons of cool ASP.NET Core features into Visual Studio for Mac lately. So it's definitely like, it's I would say like the premier experience for building ASP.NET Core apps on a Mac. You're going to want Visual Studio for Mac. And that's some of the stuff you'll show. And then selfishly for me, I just joined your team as well. So I've been learning about all this stuff, updating docs and going through stuff and learning about it, and wanted to share that. And then thirdly, we've got February 24th, we've got an event where we're going to be showing like day in the life of a .NET Core dev on a Mac.
Oh, cool.
We're showing, and Sayed's going to be joining me for a session. We've got a Blazor session with Dan Roth and Kendra. We've got Unity and Xamarin and, like all the stuff. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And one thing that I want to kind of point out is, over the last year and a half or 2 years, essentially since I joined the team, we've made a huge number of improvements. And if you've tried Visual Studio for Mac, let's say a year ago or more previously than that, then I think it's a good chance to take another look, because since then, what we've done is, we've made some huge changes, bringing over components from Visual Studio. For example, all the editors, like the C# editors and the web editors, like CSS, HTML, Razor, JSON, CSS, JavaScript. We ported those over from Visual Studio itself, so we have a very kind of similar experience there, and it's totally different from where the product was, a couple of years ago. Yeah,
it's really interesting to me how it's kind of the best of both, because it's shared code with Visual Studio for Windows, but it's native code using Cocoa on Mac, which is pretty cool. So there's like some abstraction going on, but it's actually able to share that UI code between the two.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So I was, to be honest with you, I was pretty amazed that the team was able to pull it off, because essentially what they did was, they took the editor code that they have in Visual Studio running on Windows, and that's all based on WPF. what they did was create an abstraction layer on top of it to where whenever a WPF call was being made, and if it's running on Mac, it would translate that to a Cocoa call. So it's essentially where we're at right now. It's just a kind of a binary drop-in. So whenever they make changes to the editors on the Windows side, we do a binary drop-in on Visual Studio for Mac, and then we get the kind of latest and greatest features and enhancements there. And that's kind of the model that we're taking all across the board too, and it's kind of like a layer cake how we've done it. Like a few years ago, one of the first things that we kind of shared was MS Build and Roslyn for the project system, and then now we're starting to share we're sharing the editors, the ones that I mentioned, and I think in the future we're going to continue sharing code. And that's not only good for us because we can ship more features and enhancements, but it's also good for users too because they're going to find more consistent experience across the IDEs. And even if one person is exclusively using Mac, you might work with a team member who's using Windows, and you need to be able to work together on the same solutions, and you need to be able to help each other on those same solutions too. If you're trying to do something in Visual Studio for Mac, you should be able to follow along with what your Windows counterpart is doing, and vice versa. So I think the next kind of major component that we'll probably start trying to share is the project system, and I think that's something that's not really known by our users, but the project system is really what's inside the IDE that has an understanding of your project and the solution, and a lot of behavior is kind of driven off that. But I think that's going to be a huge effort, and it's probably not coming anytime soon. But yeah, we're always looking for opportunities to share more code. That's right.
Cool. Well, you want to show some stuff off?
Yeah, let me share my screen here, and then we'll go ahead and get started up. So I think we'll start off with file new project essentially here, and just kind of navigate the IDE here. So yeah, we offer a variety of templates here for .NET Core. They're all under the .NET Core node here. So we've got app here. So this list of templates that's available is the same templates that are available in Visual Studio. And these templates are actually they're shared with the command line with .NET New as well. So you're going to get the same exact templates that are available. If you're creating a library, we've got .NET Standard class library down here. We also have a unit test template here. So yeah, we support those three unit test providers. So let's kind of go into this real quick. One of the things that's relatively new here is support for Blazor Server. So let me go into that. We can see here that we also have the ability to configure the authentication. Here we brought over, and this is something that we recently released actually. So this is relatively new.
This is which version are you in? 8.4.
This is so this feature was released in Visual Studio for Mac 8.4. The particular version that I'm using now is like kind of like a Frankenstein sort of internal build that I've got going on. It's either 8.5 or 8.6 version. I'm not sure which one.
8-point mystery.
8.x, So yeah, let me go ahead and create this project. 111. So we'll just go with that basically. Go ahead and create that, and then this will go ahead and create our new Blazor application here that's been configured with the individual and app authentication method. That's also the most common authentication method, and it's like the most heavily used across the different options that are available in Visual Studio. But we're going to continue bringing additional options over. But this one is by far the one that I've heard the most from users that they wanted support for. Yeah, let me go ahead and run this application, and then we can kind of explore what we get out of this as well too. All right, so just like Visual Studio itself, you have menu options to run the app, either start debugging or without debugging. And then we also have there's like a little play button here. You could use either one of those. All right, let's go back to my application here. So here we've got the app, and it looks different from what I was expecting a little bit. But we could register and log in just like you could with any vanilla ASP.NET Core application here too. So we've got that, and then what I wanted to do real quick was to kind of go through some of the preferences that users might want to set the first time they start running the IDE here. So I'll go into preferences. There's a couple things here. So the visual style, you can either choose, light theme or dark theme. Typically, I use dark theme, but I was doing some screenshots for documentation. That's why I switched over to the light theme. For key bindings, we can see I'm on custom. Let me switch back over to Visual Studio for Mac. But if you're coming over from Visual Studio on Windows, you might want to choose Visual Studio Windows. But if you've got like an extensive Mac background, you might be more comfortable with Visual Studio for Mac. So we've got that. And then there's also, if you're using any kind of custom NuGet sources, you can go and define your custom NuGet sources here as well. Yeah, so we got that. And then
there's also in there, so there's the light and dark theme. There's also the custom themes, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's right. So there's a visual style for the overall application, but then in particular for the editor, we do have color themes, various different color themes here. So for example, if you're a fan of Solarized Dark, you can go in here and you know what? Let me open a code file here so we can take a look what it looks like here. Let's go with startup.cs. We got a little bit more code here. So yeah, if I go back into preferences and we kind of start tweaking the color themes, we should see these start showing up basically. And we also support a variety of different common themes that are out there that you can download. Like the TextMate themes are pretty popular. You can just download those and add those here. So if you find a TextMate theme that you're interested in, just go and download that and add it to your IDE here. That's right. Another thing that's pretty cool is code snippets, and this is one thing that kind of differentiates Visual Studio for Mac from Visual Studio itself. We have like a code snippet editor here.
Nice.
So for example, whenever I do any demos, I've got my little code snippet editor here, and it just makes it just a little bit easier than when you're running in Windows itself. But yeah, those are primarily the preferences that I kind of look at and start customizing whenever I get to a new machine. That's right. Yep. And then obviously fonts. In this case, I've customized it to Cascadia Code, which is a font that Microsoft recently released that supports the ligatures and whatnot. Like this, for example, is a ligature. So instead of what is it? Well, either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got that, and then I wanted to show you some of the recent enhancements that we've made. Let me go and open up my. So I've got a kind of a variety of different applications that I've developed here. Some of them with just regular ASP.NET Core, and some of them with Blazor Server that I'll go through and show you guys here. So this particular solution that I have here is a website that will show you the templates that are available for .NET New. You can get to it. It's live at .NETnew.azurewebsites.net. But we can see here, I've got a API project and a web project here. If I was to just run this right now, it would launch the templates web one, which is just the website itself. So we would get an error here saying, hey, I can't reach to the templates API here.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to run more than one project at once, you would just right click and say set startup projects. And then here you can pick the particular projects that you want. I've already actually done this on my side. So let's just go through and click OK on this guy. Hold on just a second. Let me, yeah, multiple projects. So you would just switch it to multiple projects. But if I hadn't done that configuration, it would automatically switch for me. But before I do that, let me show you one additional thing here. Something that we've also recently kind of introduced is the browser selector, and this is a feature that's available on Windows as well. So we've introduced this. If you want to debug your app, let's say in Firefox or Chrome, you can easily switch that.
Oh, no, I saw you got iTerm set up there too. That's cool.
Yeah, what's kind of funny is there's some of these apps that I wasn't anticipating that they would show up in this list, like iTerm and Snagit.
Yeah.
But this list is the same exact list that shows up in macOS browsers, and through my testing, I noticed if I switched over to Snagit and I run my app, what actually comes out of it is a screenshot of my app that's running. So they are registering themselves in the system as a browser. I doubt people are going to choose these options, but I haven't figured out a good way to filter it out. So for now, I'm just leaving everything there, and it does match what's in macOS system preferences there. So yeah, let me go ahead and do multiple projects, and what we should see come out of this. I'll just start without debugging here. So our API project will fire up, our web project will fire up at the same time, and then we'll be able to party on that. Hold on one second. I think maybe I haven't restored my NuGet packages or something.
That's a common thing with the workshop that Damien did this past week in NDC. We have that same sort of architecture where you've got the API backend and the web front end, and you're always like, go in and set up a common, you know what I mean? Set up the multiple startup.
Yeah, right. No, that's extremely common, especially with ASP.NET Core developers here. Yeah, you definitely, lots of scenarios where you need to run more than one app at once. Not sure what's going on here. This was just working right before the call here, so we should be good here. Let's go ahead and try to run that one more time. And then, actually, I probably should have done start with debugging, but that's fine. After this is done, we'll kind of explore the app a little bit, and then we'll take a look at some debugging features, most likely. Let me close out of some of these additional windows that we got. So we can see that it launched my API application here, and then it also launched my web application here, and this web app is making calls into that API project, and we can see that as well. So let me stop this. I'll set a couple breakpoints, and we'll take a look at some debugging features that we have here. So template pack controller here, I think. Trying to figure out where's a good place to put a breakpoint here. I think this one's probably fine. And yeah, somewhere here, I guess is probably fine. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this with debugging here. So I'll just press the play button. And we are trying to make the experience to be very kind of similar to Visual Studio. Like for example, when I right-clicked on the solution and I said set multiple startup projects, that's the same exact entry point as Visual Studio itself, and very kind of similar experience there. All right, we can see that my breakpoint has been hit, and we have the kind of similar functionality as to what you would expect. We've got these windows here, but let me show you what happens if I, let's say if you're debugging, and for one reason or another you don't see those windows, you just go to View Debug Pads and then Watch or Call Stack. So let me add a underscore web root here. We can see that we're getting. Oh, I misspelled it here. Just one second. Add an additional underscore there. Let me just copy and paste it here. So yeah, we'll get the same experience as to what's kind of similar to on the Visual Studio side there. Let me go ahead and continue this. Oh yeah, right. Okay, so why don't I show you guys another kind of feature that we've recently added here. So let's say you're debugging your application, and you've hit a breakpoint, and you found some sort of particular issue. And now what you want to do is, your code is going to go down through here, and you don't want to set a breakpoint that's always going to stop, but you want to just one time, you want to break here, right? So what I can do is I can right-click and say run to cursor. What run to cursor does is it will continue execution of the application, and then whenever you get to where your cursor is, it will stop there. So that's exactly what happened here, right? And you've got that same feature in Visual Studio. Another feature that we've recently, another feature that was relatively recent, is the ability to right-click and say Set Next Statement. So let me kind of explain the difference between run to cursor and set next statement. So with run to cursor, we had our break. We were paused over here, and then I said run to cursor, and it continued execution of my application. And then whenever it arrived at that cursor location, then the application paused, right? So that's run to cursor. Set next statement is very different from that. So imagine like in this case, right? So I've got this property here, and I just called this method to get a result out of it. In this case, let's say this is a kind of a library method, but imagine that's a method that you're developing yourself, and then you stepped over line 25, and now you're on line 26. But let's say if there was a result that you weren't anticipating, what you want to do is you want to go back and maybe potentially step into that method, right? So that's what you would do with set next statement. And set next statement is kind of very different from run to cursor. Set next statement, it will literally take whatever line you're on, and that will be the next statement that's going to get executed. There's no code execution in between that. It just literally changes the current line of code. And sometimes this could be dangerous. Like if you go out of a method, or if you go into certain parts of things, set next statement may not work. That's the same with any IDE that supports that. And then we can go ahead and continue as well. All right, so that was one.
And in the debugger, you can expand out, like it has the whole kind of nested object support thing as well, right? So it's not like you were just showing a string in the watch, but you can actually like expand all that stuff out.
That's right. So let me show you with a different solution here, something that I have here set up. What is it? Yeah, let me think about this one. Okay, yeah. So let me open up another one, but real quick, while I was talking, I did something that people might have missed. This is also relatively recent. You can right-click Visual Studio for Mac icon in the dock and say New Instance, and that will fire up a new instance of for you. Okay, let me open up this. This is actually a Blazor application which I've been developing here. All right, so now let me go into, user link. Okay, great. Okay, so now let me go and set some sort of a, let me show you this real quick, by the way, while we're here. One of the things that I kind of mentioned was, we've done some really great enhancements to the editing experience here. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to type in this line of code, and let me see, let me remove this one. All right, so now this debugger display was in that namespace, which I just deleted here. So let's try typing this and see what happens. So we can see debugger display, and it says system.diagnostics. So if I was to hit that on line 3, I'm going to see using system.diagnostics here. So it'll automatically import that namespace, and there is a preference for this, but it's supposed to be set to true by default. Okay, so what I'm doing now is this is a kind of interesting feature from debugger perspective, and this works on Mac and Windows as well. It's called debugger display. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint somewhere here. Okay, yeah, right here. So I already have a breakpoint that's set up. Yeah, so let me start debugging this, and then we'll take a look at the result that we get here.
This is the thing where normally the debugger just shows you the name of the object, which is totally not useful, right?
Yeah, right.
So
that's
you're
right.
customizing the actual information you're showing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so normally it would just call toString on your object here, which is in this case I'm going to inspect this links value, which is a list. So you just see system dot object or whatever. Okay, so let me go into the watch window. And in this case, I believe I've already added this to the watch window previously. So you can see I've got 35 items here. If I was to start drilling into this, you can see now I've got my debugger display here. It says, hey, this is UTF-8 icons, and here's the URL. We can also go into this as well, and you can also modify these properties as well here. So yeah, that's definitely something that you might be interested in. So yeah, you can inspect these properties and then modify the properties. It's similar to what you can do in Windows, and you can also hover to get that kind of similar experience as well. And this behaves kind of similarly to what I was just showing you in the watch window there. And there's also we also have a immediate window here, so it's not visible. So let me go into debug pads immediate. And then here is where you can just type various different expressions here. If I wanted to take a look at the links object again, I can do that here as well. If I wanted to get a particular one, I can go ahead and go into it. Yeah, and there's IntelliSense here as well. So yeah, we got that. All right, so now let me close out of that a little bit. So let's take a look at additional kind of debugging features here. So in the menu bar here, we've got the kind of the most common commands here. So continue, step over, step into, step out of. So if I was to do a step out here, we'll just get out of that method and go back to the previous caller here. Let me step out of that one as well.
One thing I don't know if you showed directly, but like this is a Razor Pages application, and there's support for Razor IntelliSense and all that stuff too, right?
Blazor app, this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry,
yeah, this is a
Blazor,
Blazor app. Yeah, that's right. Let's go into it.
But lucky for me, there's also support for Blazor IntelliSense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go into my my search component here. This one's a little bit kind of more kind of content here, basically. So yeah, that's right. So we do have full support for Blazor, not only syntax highlighting and colorization, but also the IntelliSense. So I got search providers, let's say the same thing, and didn't pop up there for some reason. Okay, my bad, I misspelled it, that's why. User error. Yeah, so we've got the kind of the same IntelliSense experience that's available on Windows, and because this is a port of it, the IntelliSense experience should be very kind of similar to it.
So I have a hot question for the people watching, because I sent an email. I was the original PM for the Razor editor 10 years ago. It was actually one of the first things I worked on when I joined. And you'll notice the color coding. One of the unique things about Razor when we invented it was the yellow highlighting you see here on the background is for things like the @ code and the @ symbol before the if and those type of things. That's a carryover from how we highlighted ASPX control characters. So I think it was like, angle bracket %, for example, for echoing out, et cetera, et cetera. So that was all.
Sting.
What's that? Yeah, the bee sting, or the bee operator, the bumblebee operator, as we used to call it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But one of the interesting things about Razor is that in many cases you don't have delimiters for the Razor expressions. Now, in your case, I note that you do, which is kind of interesting. So like on line 21, you've got value equals quotes, and then you've got @ and parentheses, and that's a Razor expression block, I guess, in want of a better term, because we have Razor blocks, which, line 27, where you say @ code, and then you have a curly brace, that denotes a Razor block. And a block is denoted with a starting curly brace and a closing curly brace. But the Razor expressions are typically non-delimited, all right? And that was one of the unique things about Blazor at the time, was that you didn't have to delimit your template areas. Like you would just say @foo, where foo was some in-scope C# value, member of some sort. And the Razor parser was, quote unquote, smart enough to figure out what was C# code, and then when you transitioned back to HTML. Now, I don't know if you could scroll up. Maybe you do have an example, or you can tell me why you've actually delimited all of those. Is that just?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like let's say with my particular code here, right? I'm relatively new to Blazor as well, and some of the things in my code may not be the best way to do things. But
no problem at all.
So yeah, I definitely might be doing things the wrong way here.
It's not a question of right or wrong, but it would be interesting if you go to line 21 for me and just remove the parentheses from just to one of those expressions, and just try and do it without the parentheses, and just make sure you don't get an error.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right?
Why did I do that? Yeah, right. So I do believe that this works. So I was just kind of overly cautious.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and start without debugging here.
So what I want to, we'll make sure this works. I think it does. And then we will, I want to ask a question regarding how we show this, because it's one of the key differences here with it seems with the Razor editor and VS for Mac versus the defaults for the Razor editor and VS is how we highlight those code expressions. And we kind of pained over this 10 years ago about how to visualize this in the editor to make it obvious what was C# and what was HTML. Mm-hmm. But you'll note that when you look at that, because there's no closing delimiter, it can be a little difficult to realize where it stops. Now, in this case, the one that you were showing, it's fairly straightforward because you're just a value inside an HTML element. And you can just assume that when you hit the angle bracket after the E, where your cursor is right now, you're back into HTML, right? But in VS on Windows, that entire expression would have a different background color. So sp.displayName would be gray behind it, or if you're in dark mode, be some other color, right? And then that would be the default. Like throughout the document, anywhere where you have Razor code, we classify that for the editor's point of view as Razor code, and then there's a default color applied to that to make the background. But it isn't perfect, and so you end up with situations, especially now in Blazor, where you have large blocks of code, like from line 27 onwards, where you have a whole bunch of code that's in a Razor block. That all has a background color, which seems a little odd, and it's not a background color for the entire area. It's just where there's characters, so it kind of looks a little weird. And so we asked this question internally again this week about whether we should revisit this default, and whether we should make it a bit smarter so that it only, for example, highlights or gives you the ability to highlight the background of expressions like that one that you just highlighted, but treat those different to ones that are delimited or inside a block, so they wouldn't be highlighted. So for example, imagine that lines 27 onwards didn't have a background color. It was just like it is here. But places where you have a Razor expression that isn't delimited would be background colored. That's not something you can do today. We don't have that classification such that you could set those options up. But I'm interested because I know some folks are just like, we don't want the background color anymore. We don't think it's necessary. But I'd be interested to hear from folks who are actually using it, especially it seems because VS for Mac doesn't have that classification, unless you've turned it off or it's just, by default, the font option doesn't have it.
I haven't,
Can you bring up your font options and see if it's listed as a classification?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Right. It wouldn't be in the font settings here.
Wherever it is in VS for Mac.
Editor.
Colorize.
I don't know if they have let's go into behavior C#, but there's not even a.
There's not even entry. What about HTML? In VS, it's under the HTML editor. No, there's no. So where in VS for Mac would you change the highlight color of a C# property, for example, property name?
Yeah, right. Okay, got it. So C# here. Where is the? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one.
Okay.
It might be part of the color theme. I wonder.
I think that's more of a question for Cody here, who's kind of our editor.
Okay. What about code formatting? If you go down to source code. And it says code formatting. What about in there? Is there an option in there for colors? No, that just looks like formats.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's in there somewhere. I'm
formatting,
assuming you can change it.
It very well could be.
Okay.
For me, I try not to customize too many things because if I'm going to do a demo or a presentation,
of course, totally.
I'd like it to be kind of more similar to what you get out of the box here.
Okay.
So I don't really dive too deep into these. Settings for that reason. The ones that I do were kind of the ones that I had kind of mentioned at the top of the call here. Yeah.
One of it, someone is saying if you hit Command Q, Command T, you should bring up a search that lets you just like type font or something, and then it'll.
Well, Command Q is going to quit the app.
Oh.
So
should help you to find things.
Dot.
Command Command dot, and then what was it? Command dot what?
He said Command Q, Command T, but I'm not sure then.
I'm not sure.
Oh, in there maybe. Is that like search everything?
No.
This does search all the commands and stuff, right?
Yes.
It's not like the VS search. It'll find options and stuff as well.
So it doesn't find options, but what it does. So basically, this we call Navigate 2, and this is more of a navigation.
Got it.
Feature, so it doesn't search through preferences today.
Okay.
More this is, how can I navigate through my code itself?
I see. It's that window. Okay, it's a control comma in VS. Okay.
Yeah, right.
It does have also commands though, like you can do start
Yeah,
you can
it's like a
start
command palette
debugging.
as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right.
so start debugging.
Well, the Jeff Papp commented that he seems to share my current feelings, which is that he likes the background color inline to know what's Razor, where Razor is seeing the end of the expression, but in the big code blocks, he could do without it. And that's exactly my opinion as well. I'd kind of
Makes sense.
And that would require us just to update the classifier in the editor and the Razor parser so it could pass. But, it would tokenize those things separately so that the editor could then classify them with different colors, but it currently doesn't do that. But anyway, it's worth asking. When I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's different to VS. So that's one area that this is slightly different. I believe the VS Code Razor format support is like this one. It doesn't have a separate background color. So
Okay, got
I'll
it.
ask
Yeah,
Cody
makes
about
sense.
that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, right. Yep. So while we're over here, we can talk a little bit about Navigate 2 as well. So yeah, you can do things like searching files, types, or members, or commands. Like let's say if you're like a keyboard type of focused person, right? When you're developing, if you don't want to use the mouse, and let's say if I want to get to searchprovider.cs here, I can do command dot and then search provider, and then I can go right to it. So that's kind of an example. You can also just search your entire solution for any particular text or those commands that we mentioned. Like, if I was to start debugging this, I can just do start. There's also prefixes here. I can say command. That would limit it to just commands. Or if I was looking for a file with the name search, I can do f:/search. And then similar for the members there as well. That's right. So yeah, let's go back out and let me show you guys some other kind of interesting features that we have here. So let me stop debugging this. One of the kind of central parts of this is not an ASP.NET project here. Let me switch back over to my ASP.NET project here. And I opened the wrong file here. Let me open my launch settings.json file here. So yeah, one of the really important things for sharing projects with other people is launch settings.json support. So this file contains information about how your project will be launched for debugging or for running purposes. Some things that are interesting here are the environment variables. You can define your own environment variables and also the application URL. So those are the two things that are the most useful here. So if I wanted to modify this file and kind of tweak those launch settings, you can do that directly by editing this file, or you can go down into options and go into the configuration here for default, and I'll switch over. We can see here I've got that environment variable here, so I'll just change it to development 2. We could also configure a different project to start here if we wanted to. And then here's the URL. Let me switch the HTTP one to 20. Let's do OK, and then we'll see that this file should be getting updated. Let's go back into it. I'm not. Oh, was I? Did I have the? I might have had the wrong launch settings.json file loaded up there. That's why we didn't see that one get updated. All right, so we've got 20 here, and then development 2. Just undo that. While I'm here, I noticed something that was kind of interesting here. So I've got the published profiles here, which I've recently renamed to publish foo. But if you were to publish your application either to a folder or to Azure, what it will do is it will create you a launch set. It will create a published profile, and that's like a pub.xml extension. And that file can be also shared with the Visual Studio Windows counterparts as well, and you'll get a kind of a similar publish experience there. All right, we've already talked about a good number of things here. Let's go into let's go more into the editor experience here. I wanted to show you guys some things there. Let me go into, let's see if this one here has, okay, maybe not. I think maybe I've already, okay, here's one. Yeah, so you're going to find similar features to what you're used to if you've used Visual Studio. So one would be, let's say remove remove and sort usings. So that's an example there. Let me find, let me see if I have any string.format commands here. Yeah, obviously I don't, but let's do one here. So let's say if I had this let me just move this to where it's not kind of grayed out. So let's say if I had this one here where I'm doing a string.format, and what I want to do is switch this over to string interpolation. I can do a quick fix and then say convert to interpolated string. We can see I've got our little preview here, so we can do that. I can also convert this to explicit type if I wanted to. I should be able to quick fix this method. Let me think about this one. Maybe this is not. Let's get rid of that. And then I should be able to quick fix this into a inline method. Oops. Let's get rid of that. All right, let's try it one more time. Let's see if this is, yeah, use expression body for methods. We can see I've got the little preview here. So yeah, so the point is, this is a C#8 app here. So not only will the editor support C#8, but it also will help you to convert your code from the older format to the newer, kind of simpler format. So hopefully you'll be able to create applications which are easier to maintain and also a lot easier to read there. So we've got that, and then let me show you guys some other things here. Oh yeah, what's interesting here is one thing that's pretty interesting here is the ability to do multiple carets here. And there's like a keyboard shortcut here for the multiple carets. Let me show you one thing. If you're looking for a command and you don't know where it is, or if you don't know the shortcut, one thing that's common with these Mac applications is inside the help menu, you can just type what command you're looking for. So if I'm looking for multiple carets, it will basically kind of show you where all these options are.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, right? Yeah. So the one that I was going to show you is the insert caret here. So it's Control Option mouse click. Let me show you that one here. So if I wanted to change string to var, so I'll do Control Option mouse click, and then I'll do Shift, and then I'll type var. So there we go, multi carets there. Oh, doesn't like that for some reason because it's a property, I guess. But that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, multi caret support there. I think that's really cool. We've also got like the box selection. I forget the keyboard shortcut offhand, but yeah. Okay. So it's Shift Option. So now let's say if I wanted to get rid of these privates, I would basically Shift Option, and then I can delete that. So yeah, stuff like that, and kind of there's other kind of multi-caret goodness. I'm not really the expert on multiple carets here, so don't want to go into too much detail there. One other thing that it's a feature that I recently kind of found out about was if you wanna copy and paste a line, obviously you could select the whole entire line. But another thing you can do is if your cursor is in that line, you can just Command X it. So I'll Command X, and now it's on my clipboard, and then I can paste it somewhere else, and that's also the same for copy as well. So if you wanted to copy your whole entire line, you just do Command C, and then that one will then show up in your clipboard there. So yeah, that was more kind of editor goodness. We talked about multi-caret and quick fix. Let me show you another thing which I think is really pretty cool, and also kind of available in the Windows counterpart. I'm trying to find a file that's a little bit bigger here. Let me switch over to. Okay, that's fine. I'll stick with where I was at actually. So let's stay over here. One thing that's kind of interesting, if you're trying to navigate your code here, we've got these drop downs that will show you the methods and the members that are inside your code file here. So if I wanted to go to set file path, I can go there, or if I wanted to go down to the template packs property, I can do that as well. So that's kind of a relatively easy way to kind of navigate your code.
It's funny. I just learned about that. I didn't realize that was there. I mean, like last week or so. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Another thing, which is another feature, which is not totally discoverable, I guess, or we've got some discoverability problems, is folding here. So, for example, you notice that these options don't show up until I kind of hover over here in this area. But if I wanted to, I can fold these. And another way I can find it is just go to. Oh, sorry, I went to the wrong place. So I was meaning to go here. fold. So the folding options are here. So yeah, if you wanted to do any folding, we can do that. We also have there's also there's a toggle folding shortcut, and this is kind of a tough shortcut actually. It's Shift Option Command back. So Shift Option Command left arrow key. Must have screwed something up there. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, we toggle the folding there. So yeah, we've got the folding support there. So that one's kind of interesting for the people who are liking folding there. All right, so let's see what else can we talk about here.
It is an hour in, just to let you know. So
yeah,
it should wind up pretty shortly.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the time. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There was one other thing I think you had told me about, which was you've got a global tool. And then you can also register. You can put that in your external tools if you want, right? So you can create a global tool. And I thought this was cool because you've got your own kind of custom global tools that you've written just for your own stuff, like opening Git repos and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So I've created, and everything that I do is on GitHub as well. So yeah, I've created my own kind of .NET Core global tool, and it will do certain things like clone repo, or if you have like some text in your clipboard that you want to convert to plain text before you paste it somewhere, you can do convert clip. I also have delete runtimes and delete SDKs. I'm always let's take a look. So I do .NET list SDKs. Let's see, which SDKs do I have here that I want to delete? This is something that I run into all the time. It's like I need to delete the SDKs and the runtimes.
And the docs will say like, go delete the folder. Like they're kind. I mean, they'll tell you what to do, but it's manual work, right?
So yeah, that's right. Yep, and it's always like a copy paste, and then you gotta kind of massage it a little bit. So yeah, if I was to do Sayed delete, and I should have picked SDKs. I'll do a -H to get the help here. Oh, I misspelled it.
Misspelled SDKs, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so what I can do is I'll say, hey, I want to delete the version that's this, and then I also have a what if. It'll tell me what it's going to delete before it actually does it. We can go back and remove the what if, and all right, I got some kind of bug here, obviously. Oh no, I need to do sudo on this one to run that.
All right, because it's deleting a folder. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought this was neat that you've got these global tools, and then you know this would run on Windows, of course, but I mean this is Mac specific in this case. What you're doing in deleting those?
No, I think it should work on Windows. I've never.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I've never actually tested it. That is kind of a good question, because what I do is I actually inspect the result that comes out. I call this command .NET list SDKs, and then I get these paths. In theory, it should work on Windows, but I never tried it myself. But I'm happy to fix bugs, and like I said, it's all open source, so anybody can kind of party on this with me as well. That's right.
And then one thing as you're developing this too, like there's the NuGet pack built into Visual Studio for Mac too. So like
yeah, that's right. Yep. So let's imagine that this was my kind of .NET Core global tool, and now I'm ready to kind of ship this up to NuGet.org. I can right-click on that and say pack, and then what that will do is go and pack it into a NuGet package into the bin folder there. So let's do reveal and finder. Then we'll go to shared. Yep. So bin, debug. And then there's our NuGet package. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Nice.
So that's definitely pretty handy, and you can just right-click. You can just publish this directly to NuGet.org. That's right.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess as Damien said, we're kind of at time. So I can I'll grab any specific links. I guess if there's like recent, we can pick some like links for a recent blog post or whatever on some of these, and I'll add those community links for the week too.
Yeah, sure, great, yeah, yeah. I think it's just the blog mainly, which is also shared with the Visual Studio blog itself. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then I guess the one other thing, just the ad is February 24th. We've got that event coming up, so I'll put the link for that in the community links too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that event, and like what you said, I'll be there, and we've got some other people too, like Dan Roth and Kendra and yourself, obviously, and even some kind of heavy hitters like Scott Hunter. So I think it's going to be a great event, and definitely looking forward to kind of showing off a lot of the goodness that we have to people that haven't seen Visual Studio for Mac, or it's been a while since they've tried Visual Studio for Mac. Definitely very exciting. Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
All right. Well, I guess let's wrap up there.
What's on next week, John?
I think next week we actually have a Damian Hanselman, like the season 1 cast reunion.
Wow. Well, okay.
Yeah. Scott said he can be there next week.
All right. Well, I look forward to that.
Exciting.
And it's in the afternoon, which suits me a lot better.
It's in the afternoon, and hopefully you could. I'm hoping you'll wear 3 watches. Which, by the way, Sayed's got a cool watch going today.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, so I
know Sayed's a watch person.
Yeah, I'm always into these watches, So I get this guy right now. Where is he?
Other way.
Well,
there we go.
Yeah, this is what I'm kind of rocking right now.
Very nice.
That's what I got.
Cool.
Yeah. So Damien, 3 watches next week.
3 watches. I must admit, when I was in London, just to sign out, I spent on the Thursday, I went for a little walk around Mayfair, and there's a couple of, in the Strand, I think, or one of the little arcades down there. There's a couple of really nice vintage watch shops. And so I was eyeing off a couple of Rolex Daytona chronographs from like the 70s, which are probably worth more than I will ever be able to even think about spending on a watch. But they are my current hero watch. It's like, a Daytona chronograph from the year I was born. That would be pretty rocking to have on my wrist, but I'm not holding it. I think Paul Newman's Daytona chronograph sold for $4 million or something ridiculous. I think Ellen DeGeneres bought it, and I think there was a viral thing that went around this last week where a veteran of an American vet bought a new one in like 1970 something and never wore it. He literally put it in a safety deposit box. So he bought it for like $360. Never wore it because he decided it was too nice. And it lived in a safety deposit box for 40 years. And it has like the original receipts and the warranty card that's never been filled. He still had the sticker on the back of the watch, right? And the guy on the show said, it's probably worth about $700,000 because it's never been worn. And the guy literally fell over. And I was like, if I was ridiculously rich, I'd go, that'd be a nice watch. Anyway, and with that.
Yeah, I don't know, For me, I'm not really a big fan of Rolex in general. They're just for me. I'm looking for something more unique.
Neither am I. But there's something about the Daytona chronograph that just the panda face just gets me every time. But I agree with you. I'm actually not a huge Rolex guy. I'm more of I like the Omega. Anyway, we're going off into a totally different topic now. Syed and I will host a new show where two people who don't really know that much about watches talk about watches. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, dude. I'll bring all my watches, dude.
I know. See, Hanselman's a watch person too. I know he has a small collection. Maybe the 3 of us. I have a small collection, and my brother actually just went into business getting watches.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he now has a watch. Slade Taylor Watches is my brother. And he is he's a young guy, but he's decided that's what he wants to try and do. So it's pretty cool. So anyway,
I even have some of those old school LED watches.
Oh yeah,
and even like the old school calculator watch.
Oh, very nice.
So man, they're pretty cool,
that's
dude.
Very cool.
I got to get the new battery put in those ones too.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. It was great to see you again, Syed. Great to be on the show.
Here.
And we're signing out. We'll see everyone next week.
Bye bye.